Tess, rumor has it you've made vacation envy a real thing here in Whitefish.
Guilty as charged. At Outside Metro, we've got everything from cozy downtown lofts to Lakeview retreats, even barns with pickleball courts. And with over 500 five-star reviews, you really can't go wrong.
What? Okay, I'm already packing my bags.
Just make sure you book direct, Julie, and save on those booking fees at outsidemetro.com. That's where the good stuff happens.
Done. Outside Metro, and stay where the locals play. The IWD406 Podcast, where Montana women are heard, celebrated, and supported. Aubrie Lorona joins us today as the CEO of her family's business, Swan Mountain Outfitters, one of the premier outdoor recreation companies serving Glacier National Park and Northwest Montana. In her role, Aubrie oversees operations, finance, marketing, and the strategic growth of a company that has become part of the Glacier experience for thousands of visitors each year. Before stepping into the family business, Aubrie built her career in the corporate world as a consultant with Deloitte after earning her degree in business administration from the University of California, Berkeley. Today, she brings that business acumen into a very different setting, managing a seasonal Montana operation rooted in the outdoors, community, and the legacy her family built. She's also the mom of 2 beautiful boys and someone deeply passionate about sustainable tourism, outdoor recreation, and sharing the landscapes of Montana with people from all over the world. Today, we're going to talk about her family's journey to Montana, the evolution of Swan Mountain Outfitters, and what it looks like to lead a business at the intersection of family legacy, entrepreneurship, and life in the mountains. Welcome, Aubrie. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much. Excited to be here.
I am so excited to chat with you. We did do a little conversation beforehand, and I got to know a little bit about you, but I'm anxious to share your story to our listeners. But first and foremost, I want to talk a little bit about where you are originally from.
I was born in Nevada, and I was there for just a few years till my family moved to Southern California, and that's where I was raised in the inland, but a beach kid. We spent all of our time going to the beach and camping and doing a lot of outdoor recreation as a family. And then I ended up growing up there and going to school in Northern California. We were, I think I told you this story, but we were the kind of the weird kids that had in a cul-de-sac in the suburbs, a deer hanging in the garage. Because my dad was a huge hunter.
I love that.
Even then, and I have vivid memories.
Aubrie, was that kind of an out of the norm thing for where you lived? There
100%.
are hunting people,
Absolutely, but not
right?
in Scripps Ranch, California.
Gotcha.
There's places that was middle upper class area with swimming pools and community areas where people would skateboard and play basketball, play baseball and soccer. And if people were hunting, you have to travel out to Central California for that, or go to the states that are big time known for hunting. There's definitely hunting in California, but to have it just hanging in your garage, and that didn't happen all the time, but I do have a vivid memory of my dad bringing home a deer that he had hunted somewhere he drove forever for and brought it home. And we've always been huge proponents of use every part of the animal. And so we've eaten all the meat, and we use the hide for decoration and use the horns, everything. And that's I definitely have a vivid memory of that when I was probably under 10.
I want to get a little bit. Yeah, I understand that. Is he from a hunting family?
No, it's just something he was raised by a single mom, but he was a Boy Scout and loved hiking. He earned his Eagle Scout. He hiked the John Muir Trail. He was always really into the outdoors. And so it was just a passion of his. And he had a dual life because he had a very intense corporate job working in accounting and consulting and mostly audit. When I was young, he was on the audit side of things and just a bookworm, a nerd on paper in a very corporate environment. And so it was just his release to be able to get out into nature. And it wasn't just hunting. We didn't do as much hunting when we were young. It was more camping and sailing and a lot of hiking and cross-country skiing and alpine skiing and just whatever we could do to get outdoors. I very vividly remember tax season. He was an accountant, so we'd have these big breaks right after April 15th where we would take a really long vacation that was combined with spring break, but it would go longer because he was like, I need to get out. And we would have these really epic outdoor experiences, which I think is a big piece of what created the passion we all have, my whole family has, for the outdoors, and the impetus for creating the family business that we have.
Yeah, that's amazing to have that. It's interesting too. Like he was a methodic person, but then on the release aspect is he wants to go out and be free. And probably were a lot of your hiking experience pretty planned out. Oh, we're going to do this trail. We're going to conquer it to get to this summit. Was that kind of what you experienced growing up? Oh, that's cool. That's really
much to the chagrin of my mom, my poor mom.
Oh, talk to me a little bit about your mom. Your mama. I want to hear a little bit about her.
She's amazing, but she's the opposite personality of my dad. He's very lots of drive and lots of conquering mountains and summiting, and she's more about the journey along the way and let's sit and smell the flowers. Very much that.
Right. But the same place to come home to, right?
Yes, absolutely.
I love that.
And she went with us, but I think in the early years, did a lot of trying to keep up just with that pace. And then got to the point where she was like, you know what? You guys do you and I'll do it at my pace, which is great, I think. But not ever not participating either. She was still there but she didn't need to conquer the mountains or do the summit. But she's been involved with the family business in her way from the beginning as well, just more on the side of when they first started the business, they ran a little bit of a bed and breakfast. So we don't do that anymore. But that was what she really was in charge of, is that guest experience before and after the trips, the hunting trips and the pack trips that we did before we got into the Glacier National Park side of things, which is more the high volume stuff that we do. She was the one that did all of the cooking and all of the preparation of the beds and the home experience for the pre and post of the trip.
Wow. I want to talk to you a little bit about, before we go there, because I have all questions about Swan Mountain Outfitters and the process of how it came about. And I think it's a really fascinating historical capture. But I want to talk a little bit about you and what your experience growing up in that part of California. And then how was high school like for you? Did you, being that kid that's got the deer heads in the garage and kind of, what is this family? Kind of, who are these people? How was your high school experience? And then from there, I want to go into, what did you decide to do after high school?
Yeah. So we were, despite that kind of in the background, we were fairly normal, kids. It's not like we played sports. Both my brother and I were really into sports. I was very driven by getting good grades. I was a really good student and I studied hard and knew that I wanted to go to college. And at the time was following in my dad's footsteps of getting really good grades and wanting to be some kind of something in the corporate world. I didn't really know what. I was always really fascinated by different cultures from around the world. And my dad had a period of time where he was managing a lot of Latin American offices and partnering with them. And we had some exchange students that lived with us a couple of times over the years from Mexico and Argentina. And so I became very interested in the Spanish language and studied a couple times in Mexico. So I knew that I wanted to go abroad for university, at least do a year abroad. And I really got excited about the idea of international business of some sort, my idea at the time was to be a cultural consultant, so someone that would help make business deals, but be there as part of, don't screw it up because you're stepping on toes that you don't even know you're stepping on, because I would understand the culture and be able to mediate that way. I just found that really interesting in terms of how important that is around the world. And I was excited to learn about it and curious if that could be something to make a career out of. So wanted to be in that consulting, international business environment. So yeah, went through school, got good grades, went to Haas Business School, which is a wonderful business school, and got my business degree and started working in consulting kind of right away out of school. And
was it
and
international?
then very quickly, it was, no, I just had general, but I was getting the experience of working in consulting. And so I had I was a business analyst. So I had Wells Fargo was a client, Hewlett Packard was a client, and I was doing a lot of strategy and developing presentations for the clients and perfecting the financial analysis and that kind of stuff to help the partners then pitch whatever they were going to pitch to the clients. But the hours are really long, and you travel a lot as a consultant. Consulting is very much like the client says jump and you say how high, and that's the only question you get to ask. And I quickly realized that it wasn't going to be what I thought in my head of experiencing the world and traveling the world the way you would if you were doing it for yourself. If you're doing it for work, you're doing it the way the client wants you or needs you to do it. And so it really changes what you get to see and what you get to do. Not that it doesn't create opportunities, but I was like, this isn't quite what I thought it was. But I was also really early in my career. I was only doing the consulting for a couple years before we made the switch to Montana and I was in San Francisco at the time. And so about 2 years into that career, we opened up the Glacier side of Swan Mountain Outfitters and jump ship, and now have been doing that for 20 years.
Holy buckets. I want to back up a little bit and ask you a couple things. You lit up when we were talking about the fact that you love the Latin American culture, and that piece is a part of your life now, which is fucking awesome how it comes full circle. But I want to point out one thing that you said is that piece is so critical. The piece is so critical on how business deals can go bad because you don't understand the depths and the root of the person, right? Where they come from, the origin story, right?
Yeah.
And I thought that was really interesting because, and I could see probably fast forward a day, you can use that same ideology or that same intuition or skill set to understand the needs of the clients that come to you guys that want this really epic adventure and with their families and all the things and learning the little tiny details about why they want to do it this way versus that way, which it kind of does come full circle.
Absolutely. It's a standard part of our training with our guides that I talk about during orientation and then throughout the season is forcing them to put themselves in the client's shoes, which are lots of different kinds of shoes. We get people from all over the world coming to Glacier, but in many ways they're similar in that they haven't been raised on horses and they haven't experienced the mountains, and the grasshopper jumping on the thing might be really cool to them because they don't have grass where they're coming from. It's just a cement-driven life, or they've never seen the starry night sky. That's something that so many people in the world don't see because of light pollution or true pollution or whatever their background is, and really challenging our guides to put themselves in the shoes that way to help them understand that the smallest little detail can be really meaningful and really impactful to a guest, but also there's fear there too, that things that they take for granted or just jumping on this horse is monumentally challenging for some people. Not only the physical aspect of it, but the fear, this giant animal that is in charge, or they think it's in charge, or they don't know how to control it. It's a very intimidating thing. And we have mixed groups a lot where we've got, this was something the kids wanted to do and the parents are really not that stoked about it, or vice versa. Or there's always one that kind of got tucked into doing it that's a little bit on the fence, and teaching them to read the body language, because it's very rare that someone's going to raise their hand and say, hey, I'm nervous, but you have to be able to talk them through that because the horses can feel it. And so if you don't give them that opportunity to release, get the jitters out, or get off, if they really aren't, if we don't think that they're going to be able to kind of conquer that fear and get comfortable, it doesn't get better. It gets worse typically. If every little shake, or if the horse sneezes or trips or whatever might happen to them, that just starts making things worse. And they need the opportunity to say, okay, it's okay. It's okay. You don't have to do this. This should be fun. It can be a little thrilling, and that's part of it, but it shouldn't be like painful and miserable.
And I love the fact that I love everything that you just said, but I also want to point out when you had mentioned that you immersed yourself in cultures like that. So you learn. So now you have people from all over coming here, but you put yourself in those situations in areas in Latin America where you have to understand the language, you have to understand the culture, and it's very diverse.
Yeah.
It's a very diverse, from one part of the region to the other part of the region. It's very diverse. So to get those, to acquire those skill sets, but the deeper level of understanding is kind of a really unique, valuable asset that you've gained in your life, and then to be able to apply it in the outfitting, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Do you see that correlation? Or
I do. Well, and it is interesting how little things really go, that was a silly dream I had, or something a path I started on that didn't come to fruition, but that it's still there. Or what drew you to it as what was enticing about it is still the aspect that you bring around to what you continue to love to do in your daily life, which is, I think, the case for me.
I love that. Now I want to talk a little bit about, was your dad the one that ended up acquiring Swan Mountain Outfitters? And I just want to learn a little bit about that before I hear about your transitioning from California, right? Because you were in California to Montana. I want to know the origin story and how did it come about? Because Swan Mountain Outfitters was around for many years before, right?
Not Swan Mountain Outfitters, but Lion Creek Outfitters, what he bought. Yeah. So, so mom and dad bought the business when I was graduating from high school in Southern California. And so it was my senior year, and we always had stuff. My dad was a crazy garage sailor. He loved to go to garage sales. And I remember him collecting things for his cabin in the woods that he was going to have someday, that he always talked about when we were in the beach and down in Southern California. He was always talking about the cabin in the woods, and he loved to get away to the mountains. And that was something he always dreamed about. And he had a list of things that this cabin in the woods, a criteria list of things that it had to have to be the place he wanted, his dream place. And it had to be X amount of miles away from world-class fishing and world-class hunting. And it had to be close to ski area and all these things. And so he got to a point in his career where he had some extra money and he thought he could buy this small kind of second home cabin in the woods. And so he started looking for the place when I was a senior in high school. So that's 2001. And basically had it narrowed down to some areas in, I think it was Utah, Colorado, and Montana, but then ultimately ended up in the Flathead Valley is where he checked out a lot of those states, but ended up in the Flathead Valley and found what we call Swan Mountain Ranch now. But it was a place that was not a cabin in the woods. It was much bigger than what he was originally thinking, but it met all the criteria, and he had to push up all the chips to make it happen because it was a bigger property than he had originally intended. And it was very clear once they got into it that it was like, no, we want to move here. We don't want this to be a second home. We want this to be our permanent home. And so really quickly, they made that decision. They put our house on the market in San Diego and moved. My brother finished high school in Big Fork, Montana. He's 2 years younger than me. So he was a sophomore when they moved. And I remember having to stay in San Diego because the house was on the market and I needed to be there, but I was moving out to go to college and they went to Montana, and I remember being really pissed off at them.
I would have been too.
17-year-old, because I was like, Montana? Where even is Montana at the time? I was pretty naive and really a spoiled brat the way teenagers are. I was really annoyed that I wasn't going to be able to come back to where all my friends were going to come back to for holidays and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I wasn't excited about it when they first did it, but they did. They moved really quickly right away and then really never looked back. We sold that house in San Diego, and they have been there ever since 2001 at that same ranch property. And the business came later. He was still doing his consulting. And at that point, he had got to an international level in his firm where he was traveling internationally and flying out. So he flew out of the Kalispell airport, I would like over 50 times a year on average, like crazy travel. But always had his cabin in the woods to come back to. Yeah. And he did that for 3 or 4 years before he decided there was an opportunity to buy an outfit that came up for sale. And he was really hitting a midlife crisis, just total burnout in the corporate world, and wasn't happy. At the time, he was splitting his time between New York City for work and then Montana, and originally thought it would be the best of both worlds, but was pretty miserable whenever he was away from Montana. And so this outfit came up for sale. Cecil Noble is a longtime outfitter in the Bob Marshall. He's passed away now, but at the time he was in his 80s, and his wife was like, can we stop outfitting now? Can you stop breaking horses as an 80-year-old man? Yeah, stop taking back strings into the Bob place. Can we retire? But he was just a salt of the earth, just as good as they come, and an amazing mentor to learn from. And very proud of that. He had Lion Creek Outfitters for years and years, and very proud of the outfit he had built. It was very boutique. It was just pack trips and hunting trips on a pretty small scale. And he did it all himself. He had guides to help him, but he basically led every trip and every hunt. And so my dad approached him and was like, I'd love to, this was his dream because this is what he had always gone around the world as a client to do. And he thinking I could do this for other people and I could hunt all the days I want and fish all the days I want. He approached him and asked to buy the business or bid on the business. And at first they were really against selling it to them because on paper, my dad was an accountant from New York. And he was like, over my dead body, I'm going to sell my outfit to an accountant from New York. There's no way. But then they met and he realized, no, I've only been in New York for several months, but that's not where I'm from. And here's my background. And they ended up coming to a deal. And my dad worked side by side with him because this is part of the rule to become an outfitter in Montana is to get your license. You have to get a certain number of guide days. And one of the ways to do that is the apprenticeship model under a current outfitter. And so he worked side by side with him for the first 12 months, leading all the pack trips and doing all the guided hunts and until he could get his outfitter license and then take over the business under his license officially. And that was in 2003-04. And then so that's what started. So he took over the business, Lion Creek Outfitters, renamed it Swan Mountain Outfitters. We're named after the Swan Peak, which we can see from our ranch. And the Swan Mountain Range is beautiful to look at from the ranch. And so that's how the name came to be. And from there, everything else just kept adding on and growing because you can take the entrepreneur out of the business environment, but you just can't take the entrepreneur out of the person.
No,
my
you
dad,
can't. No.
And so he's a builder and a grower and a dreamer. And so he kept, every time he'd see a need in the industry or something that was missing, he would be like, we could probably do that. We could. And that's how we had got our guide school. And that's how we developed the llama trekking business. And that's why the Glacier Park one is a little bit different. I don't know, that was a need in the industry, but it was something that he was like, this is really cool. I'd love to bid on this and see what happens. But almost everything we've had has been very entrepreneurial, opportunistic, and in response to something he recognized as a need in the market.
It's so, I gotta say, this is fascinating. This fascinates me. I love these type of stories because first and foremost, it takes one person, right? You got this one guy, your dad, who had this idea his entire life. It reminds me a little of my husband. He's always he's an entrepreneur. We own a company. He is the guy that you hit the nail on the head. You cannot take that out of him. He's always thinking of different things that we can do, either to expand the business or to create business opportunities for our children. And it's interesting because you see the impact it makes on their kids. My oldest boy is going to school for business and he's always got ideas, things to happen.
Yeah.
But I see that in you in the sense of you went to college for business consulting, right? Let's back up. Before that senior year, you're like, my dad's is going through a midlife crisis, essentially. He's crazy. He's crazy, right? He works this really hard, high-end job, probably witnessed oftentimes, and I'm over speaking here, but I'm just going to make an assumption that you saw that he wasn't really feeling fulfilled, right?
No,
and he's like,
yeah.
And when you're a senior in high school, you're not even paying attention to your parents, right?
Oh,
But
no.
you know that if they're struggling and then they make this major life change, you're like, what the hell?
Right.
And when they're not really truly explaining it, did he sit down with you? Do you have a brother or sister? Or is it just
I have a younger brother.
Yeah, that's right. You mentioned that. A younger brother. Did he explain to you guys? Because that's a massive change in you guys' lives, right?
Yeah, I'm sure he did. He's always been good at explaining, but I don't remember the conversation. I remember him being gone on this scouting mission to find the properties. But again, it evolved into something more than what it was originally supposed to be. It was supposed to be a little cabin getaway in the woods. And then it turned into that we're going to move there and we're going to uproot our whole life and pretty quickly. And I don't remember him being like, oh, we're going to do this instead. I remember just being, I remember him being on the phone with me saying, I can't even describe to you how this place makes me feel. I remember that very vividly, that him being at the ranch, he was like, had walked around it with the realtor and describing the place and how beautiful it was. And he was like, I'm looking at elk in the meadow right now. And I could hear it in his voice, the emotion of how meaningful the place was to him. And he was like, so I think we're going to have to move here full time. And then I was just like, what?
Yeah. I want to say something as a testament to your mom, right? Your mom has probably been such a beautiful, sacred, safe place where home doesn't really matter. Home is us, our unit, what we've got going on. And probably outwardly is, if my husband isn't feeling fulfilled, I want him to figure that out, right? And probably selflessly does the same thing with you guys. A woman that sees that the heart needs to be exploding. I don't know if exploding is the word, but I'm at a loss for words right now. But, that's really wonderful to know that you have this really strong unit. You have this parental, you've got this great influence from your dad that says, you know what, you can make a freaking change anytime you want, right? And then you've got this strong, grounded, rooted mother who's, I want everybody to be happy, everybody to feel good, everybody to achieve whatever it is that's going to make them feel good in life, right? Passion or that purpose. I just have to say how blessed you are.
I know. I do.
But to know too, like, you also increase in adaptability to be able to, they giving you opportunities to go overseas and experience other cultures and to figure out what makes you tick a bit. And that little tiny piece, like I had mentioned, where you can see the importance of developing or cultivating quickly a deeper understanding of cultures, of people. And then, like I said, the adaptability of going from California to Montana, because that is not, I know for myself in my 40s, deciding to move from where I'm rooted from, Illinois, Midwest, and going, we're moving to Montana, what? And I just knew my husband, that's where he wanted to be, right? Something was calling him here. But it's a big change, and it's a big change during that time frame, senior year, right? Moving here. But what an epic story. What an epic story into how you guys acquired it. And just, I don't know, I think that's thank you so much for sharing that. Now I want to hear your story of coming to Montana. How did that happen?
So it starts still again with Dad and his crazy ideas, but part of selling hunts, at least back then, now it's become much more internet dominated. But to some degree, it's still very much this way that hunting clients want to look you in the eye and shake your hand and know what they're getting. They spend a lot of money. They're in many ways putting their lives on the line sometimes, especially if they're doing something risky or going to the top of the mountain. And it's, for a lot of them, it's a bucket list trip and something that they won't get to do again. And so they just want, they want to talk to you. And hunters love to just, shoot the shit and hunting stories. That's just such a big piece of that culture, and a big way to sell hunts, especially when we first started the business. It was to do the hunting shows back east. And my dad would do that every off season. He would go to the Harrisburg hunting show, and it's like a 9-day show, and you're there every single day in a booth, selling the hunts, talking to all these prospective clients, showing them pictures of the area, showing them the mounts, talking about all the things. And my mom used to go with him. She got pretty burnt out on it pretty quickly and stopped going with him. And so I think for the first couple of years she went with him, and then he went by himself. I think the first winter when he went by himself, he'd do that all day. And then he'd be in a camper at night, just waiting till tomorrow to do it all over again. So he had all this extra free time. And right about that time, the RFP for the Glacier National Park concession contract for horseback riding came in. And he bid on it. He had a tremendous amount of experience from all his years of working in professional services in responding to requests for proposals. And so he put together a killer RFP response, and he won the bid. He did it without, like I said, he did it because he was bored. He did it because he was bored in a trailer at night. But he's an accountant and a businessman by nature, and he knows numbers inside and out, and he knows business deals, and he recognized it as a good opportunity financially, but also just a really cool story because the history of horseback riding in Glacier National Park is really amazing. It's been going on since the park was founded, essentially, and the park itself was founded by horses and the mules that helped create the chalets and the lodges and the going to the Sun Road and all the stuff that was packed in, and the way they used to travel through all the different routes to see the different chalets on horseback, these multi-week excursions, just really cool. And so he loved that story. He thought it was really cool. So he kind of just bid on this contract and won. And the contract that they had, the contract that we have, is it has a first right of refusal clause for the incumbent. Even though he won, the incumbent provider was able to basically match that proposal and retain the contract, which he did. And because otherwise you lose your investment. And so that's kind of where he left it. And at the time, my husband and I, we were not together married. We were just dating and we were in the city and we hadn't gone home for Thanksgiving that year. So we called to say happy Thanksgiving to the family. And he told us about this thing. This crazy thing happened and I bid on this contract and I won it. And that's so crazy. Isn't that crazy that I won, but I don't have anyone to run it. And now it's come back. And the only way to get it now is to buy it because they've retained the contract. And we had that phone call and it was like, oh yeah, that's crazy, Dad. And when we got off the phone, my husband, who at the time was working in sales and was pretty burnt out on it. He was doing a lot of driving in Bay Area traffic and just not fulfilled. And I was at a point in my career with Deloitte where I was going to have to either leave or go back to business school, because once you hit the consultant level or once you're ready to get promoted to the consultant level, you have to have an MBA. And I had just finished business school and I didn't really want to go back to business school for an MBA. I was really liking working and didn't really feel that. So I was going to have to make a company change no matter what. That's the time it hit us in our personal lives. And we got off that first phone call with my dad, and Eric, my husband, was like, I think we should go run it for him. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Crazy. Like, wow, we don't know anything about this. We can't do this. And he was like, no, but really, no, but hear me out. And he broke it all down. And he was like, what do we have to lose? We're super young. You've got to leave anyways. I'm ready to make a change. Like, why not? And that's how it started. And so we talked about it a lot for a couple weeks. And then we called my dad back and we were like, what if we ran the business in the park? And he was like, really? For him, the idea of a legacy family business was another dream come true. He came from a single mom and just didn't have just this idea of having your family home, closer to home, back in the state with you, and then running a business together. He just thought it was so cool. And so that was late fall of 2006. And by 2007, we were opening up for the 2007 operating season in Glacier. So we moved there by March of 2007. There was a period where we were working both jobs, trying to put together the financials and everything, because we had to go through an approval process with regional for the Park Service to get approved as the new concessionaire to buy out the incumbent. And that whole process was pretty onerous and took a long time. We had to prove up all these financials and we had to build the website and we had to, all those things. We had to start a business from scratch while we were still working in San Francisco. And then we had to learn about the liability associated with equine. And we had a crash course in all of that. And the season starts in May. And we had a lot going on that first couple months in 2007. But by April, we had moved to Montana. And by May, we were opening up Apgar.
Within a month?
Yeah.
Holy buckets. Let's just digest this one because I'm really impressed. Number one, you have a secured corporate life in play. You met the love of your life. He's also working, but you also, a lot of people that are listening and myself included, I came from corporate as well. There's some mundaneness. Yeah. Unless you're like, that is your path. You want to climb that corporate ladder. And I see some things there, but it feels good to have that security. I was waking up every day going, okay, I've got my insurance. I got all my benefits. I've got a paycheck coming. Nothing to like, I wasn't like, oh, every day I wake up, I love this job. But I felt secured, right? But let me get your thoughts on going from a corporate life, transitioning into, let's be honest, your rural, from the Midwest, that's how I say it. But anyway, now you're building this business over this way. You go from this corporate life, now you're moving to Montana. You've got one leg in and one leg out. Was the distraction of all the things happening to build the business out and also everything that goes into building a business linked into the kind of the government situation, learning a new industry with equine anything is complicated. Liability, all things horses to me seems, there's so much that's involved in that. Do you think that distracted you from that kind of chaotic moment of flipping the script from corporate life, going to living Montana, starting a new business? Or were you excited about it? Were you like, yeah, let's do this?
No, I think there was a fair bit of just keep all the balls in the air for a good period of time. There wasn't a lot of time to be, we had conversations. I can't tell you how many times I had the conversation with college classmates, roommates, people that were like, you're leaving? Where are you going? Why are you doing this? I mean, we're just crazy like that. And it was like that kind of very superficial type conversation. We had a lot of those leaving, but there wasn't a lot of time to sit and digest and be like, are we good with this? Is this a mistake? Are we excited? Are we scared? It just was kind of like, we were rolling. We were excited for sure because there was a lot to do, but there was just a lot to manage, a lot of things to keep going. And it just, the same way it always does even now, 20 years later, the start of the season is always, you just roll. And you don't have, it never goes the way it's supposed to. There's always something. There's some flood, there's some fire, there's some road closure, there's some bug outbreak, there's something that happens that screws up the plan. And then you got to pivot. And there's COVID. There's always something. And I feel like that has been our norm since that very first 2007 season of just keep all the balls in the air and figure out how to adapt and how to pivot when Mother Nature, who's truly in control of our business, really, we're so impacted on everything that we do by what's dictated by Mother Nature. When she throws you something, you got to just figure out how to roll with it and make it happen still. And so, there wasn't a lot of time to really think about it. I do remember once we were into it, once we were in that first season, totally breaking down behind the barn and crying and being like,
yeah.
I was really over my moments of just being like, what are we doing? Because it was so much, we knew so much less from a horsemanship standpoint compared to most of our employees who were younger than us or older than us, but a lot of them were younger than us. And from a horsemanship standpoint, knew more. And that was a really kind of hard transition. And we came in to run a crew that we didn't hire, which was really hard. That was a difficult, challenging thing. And then just, navigating from working in the private sector to working in partnership with the government. It's an amazing partnership. I value our government partners, but it is really different. And there's different rules of play. And learning that was hard. That was especially me coming from fresh out of corporate. I was like, why can't we just do this? It'll make more money. That's not always the answer that they care about or that is the right answer. When you're trying to balance outdoor recreation and visitor enjoyment and protection of public lands, and they've got their own set of balls to juggle and keep up in the air. And it's they're driven by different purposes. And so
And that again, Aubrie, plays into your ability to dive deeper into why, the understanding, the deeper rooted reasons on why. Historically, you're looking at Glacier National Park, Teddy Roosevelt, all the things that happened years and years ago, and they've tried to figure things out. And the federal is at the mercy of Mother Nature with these parks, right? So now you're at the mercy of Glacier National Park and also Mother Nature and things. So the control factor of what you can or you want to do with your business, like you had mentioned, it's not completely in your hands. It's not completely in your control. And how did you learn to accept that? Has there been some challenges along the way where you're like you had mentioned, I just want to do this. This is our business. This is our family's business. This is what we want to do and to be able to survive here, right? The challenges come with that. How do you navigate them? Because you probably come upon them all the time. How do you navigate them and not get completely frustrated and go, done, I'm out. This is not working.
Sure. I think one of the blessings that we have, at least in the Glacier National Park administration, is that it is a small community and our kids go to school together and these are our neighbors and our friends. And it's very easy to recognize that we're all just people trying to do the best we can in the circumstances that we all individually have. And so it's a lot of good communication and good conversations, sometimes multiple to get to where you need to get to understand it all. But I think it's that. And I don't know if that's true everywhere in terms of bigger parks and bigger places might have it a little bit more challenging. And we're a mom and pop organization in the sea of concessionaires. We're really pretty small. And we're lucky that the administration that we have in Glacier National Park is kind of mom and pop too, in a way.
Yeah, it makes sense.
But I do think that fundamental communication and frequent conversations with respect is the key.
Yeah. And that's what it sounds like when I interviewed Lexi Woods, as far as her having one of the, I think, 6 park permits for commercial rafting.
The Forest Service rafting.
And so I think there's this level of Absolutely. Communication, making sure that that line of communications consistently open, and not just from the perspective of it's a one-way line of communication. And
No.
hey, exactly. This impacts all of us, and we're not very big. I think in comparison of Yellowstone National Park, how massive and how impactful it is. And it's a big reach, right? It goes all the way to Jackson Hole, and it's a huge national park. But you're right, Glacier National Park is not as big, and it does have not just, I don't want to say lesser impact, but it is a smaller community, right? That it serves. But on top of that, tourism, millions of people come here to visit a year.
Oh, absolutely. It has a massive impact, I think, economically. But I think when you strip that all away, especially because it's seasonal, there are 3 million visitors throughout the year, or it's more than that now, and the majority of those in the summertime, but then they all go away, and it's like, then it's just us. Then it's just us up there in the canyon, and those people are your friends and your neighbors, and you see them on the cross country ski trails, and you're, like I said, your kids go to school together, and you're doing fundraisers, and you're on boards with each other, and you're in book clubs with each other, and it's a community still, and that I think is a very special, unique aspect of our place that we have.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. And so now you guys are rapidly is it 23 years being in business?
So for our Glacier contract, it's 20. This is our 20th season.
Right.
And then, if you add 24 total
years.
Yeah.
That's building a legacy here. It truly is.
It's a generation.
It truly is. And you got to think about, your kids are coming up. Are they going to want to get into this business? And what is that going to look like? So does that come into your mind often? Like,
oh, yeah. Yeah, I think for sure we're always thinking about it for the future. And my little nephew has been fishing and hunting since he could walk. He loves it. And my kids love it too. But I think there is a different aspect of it. They see the more high volume impact of it, because my brother and my sister-in-law run our Swan division, which is down in the Swan Lake area. So it is more boutique. Obviously, they get a lot of visitors down there, but the impact that we see in the Flathead Valley of cars and the way the roads change and the parking and the can't turn left and all of that, they're a little bit more insulated from that because they're in the woods already. They're already out back. And whereas my kids are a little bit more front country, and they're like, oh, the tourists are here.
Yeah. Yes, I can see that. Yeah.
Like, definitely are like, oh, they see such a big difference between
That is a big difference.
and then when they're here. And so it's interesting that balance. And we always have the conversation with them, but we depend on the tourists in that they create our livelihood. And it's really important to be respectful of them and grateful for their dollars that they're spending in our economy that help everybody, not just the people that work in tourism, but the grocery stores and the gas stations and everything. It has such an enormous reach. And so we talk about it a lot, but it is interesting that seeing it from that perspective, because they don't care about the numbers and they don't care about, they just see how their life gets impacted from a daily.
Well, and
such a pure consumer of life.
Yeah. And I see the two distinctive differences. You're in the park. It's dependent upon when the park opens. The park opens usually at the end of May, mid-May, right? I don't know about this year, especially with the way the weather has gone. But are you starting operations with the horses and horseback trails going up to Sperry? Or I think you guys are more located near that Lake McDonald location.
We've got 3 locations in the park. We have Apgar, which is close to Porter Circle Bridge and where the Glacier Institute Field Camp is there. And then we have our Lake McDonald one, which is the one that goes to Sperry Chalet. That's right across from the Lake McDonald Lodge. And then we have the Many Glacier one, which is directly across from the Many Glacier Hotel. And then we own the Crown of the Continent Discovery Center, which is right outside the west entrance.
Yes.
And we have a Forest Service permit there to do horseback rides. And we have a gift shop and Last Best Pizza and Bar and a bunch of stuff there because it's land we own. We have a little bit more latitude to offer more services. And so the park is actually always open. But in terms of amenities and services that it can provide to visitors, that is very seasonal. And we open up our corrals, all trail dependent. We get approval from the Park Service on the condition of the trails, if they're too wet, if they've had time to clear all the trees off of it. So not everything opens all at once. Things are very scheduled out. So Sperry Chalet typically doesn't open until mid-July, because before that, the chalet itself can't really get in there and get operating, and it's snow covered at the very top, the end of the trail. You can't actually access the chalet if it's been a big snow year. Or maybe we haven't cleared the Apgar Lookout Trail, but we can do the 1 and 2 hour down low and start with that, and then add the Apgar Lookout Trail in June. So everything gets staggered opening, and same thing on the closing.
Wow. And that business is its own entity. And then is it your brother-in-law's business?
My brother. Yeah. My
Your
brother. So
brother.
it's the Swan group of companies and their sister companies. Within Swan Mountain Outfitters, we have divisions. So there's the Glacier division, which is everything I just described. And then there's the Swan division, which is all of our more backcountry stuff. That's also what houses our guide school and our llama trekking and the fishing and the hunting and the multi-day pack
all
trips.
year. That's all year.
Yeah, when you think about it, because still summer is the heavy season, but because they've got hunting, they can do the full range of species that we offer. And so there is mountain lion hunting in the wintertime. We do snowmobile tours, which is, again, under the umbrella, but it's its own little entity that covers the winter season months. And again, adaptable, right? So we started as dad by himself having a midlife crisis, and then we add me and my husband to it, and then we add my brother to it, and then he gets married, and then we all start having kids, and you gotta
it's a family business
because kids are expensive.
There's a couple of things here. For a couple things I want to interject and make some comments. We own a family business that has multiple families involved, and my husband's grandfather started it, so it's a legacy business, 60 years old. But it's fascinating because you have to think about. I think when you come into something like this and you've got a 24-year-old business, the long term, the legacy, the impact, all the things that's happening, and it's insanely the distance that you guys cover. My husband and I have done many outfitting trips with you guys. My husband does bear hunts with you guys. We've done snowmobile rides with you guys. You guys have hauled your snowmobiles up to our place up in the North Fork. We've always had a wonderful experience with you guys, but I cannot get over how much territory you guys cover.
Yeah.
I cannot get over how many offerings you guys give. And I don't know, just the diversity of it. Can I ask you, how many people in total, maybe you could split it out for each division. How many people in total do you have for your division, and how many horses do you have to manage?
So the Glacier division, probably between the corrals in the park and then what we do in the West Glacier location, is anywhere between 12 and 15,000 a year riders that'll come through. And then we have another probably 2,000 we might do down in the Swan Valley.
Wow.
And then we've got pack tripper guests. Each of those is adding a couple hundred pack trippers, hunters, guide schoolers. And so several thousand altogether in the Swan division, couple thousand people that we take on snowmobile rides, about 100 guide school students that we service. So it's quite a few. And then from a horse perspective, we have little less than 100 in our own personal herd that we own. And then we have to lease about 150 to come in to supplement just the summer month.
And they do about 15,000 trail rides each year, right? Am I correct with that number?
Yeah.
That is a lot of people and animal management.
Yes.
And let's look at the fact that you have employees. Look at those employees. I always think about this with our family's company, how many employees we have, and then the families that are impacted by our business. Just employee alone, you have hundreds of thousands of people that you've impacted. That's crazy. Do you ever sit back and think about that and go, wow, it's unreal?
Not as much as I probably should.
Really should, because it's fascinating.
Yeah.
When we moved here, I thought Swan Mountain Outfitters. We first did that Bond Lake horseback riding trip because my husband wanted to do elk hunting. So we took our 70-year-old parents on that and did that really amazing horseback ride with you guys. And I thought, oh, this is some little outfitting company that does this little local horseback riding ventures kind of thing. And then the more I dove into it, and then when I interviewed Lexi, I was like, holy buckets. This is a mega operation.
Yeah.
But what was even more striking about it is that it's family owned. I love that. I have a soft spot for that, considering we've the pressures that it takes. It's hard to do business with family, right?
It is.
And it's hard to maintain that. And how do you guys shuffle keeping family separate and the business its own thing, right? How do you do that?
We're not good at that.
We aren't either.
You have to have a lot of
it comes up.
conversations, but inevitably you're talking about something in the business and something that happened when you were 6 comes up because
Or over Thanksgiving dinner, you're like, can you guys give it a rest about a customer? Or
100%.
I'm like,
but
yeah.
we do have an operating agreement. Sticking to it is challenging, but we have had the conversation of, okay, this is when it's off limits and we have to do X number of trips a year or get-togethers a year where it is completely mum's the word on business talk. And so we have laid ground rules. We're not always great about sticking to them, especially if something big has happened or we're having to pivot or adapt or whatever. And it's hard too, because when you have something that you're passionate about and you spend all your time doing, you naturally are going to talk about it. And so like, especially in the case of my brother is a massively passionate fly fisherman. And so if he wasn't in the business of offering fly fishing trips, which he is, he would still be talking about fly fishing. So it's a little bit of a double-edged sword there where you don't want to take it away because that is what they're passionate about talking about, but it is important to create that separation. And you're absolutely right. Working with family is really challenging and it's not for the faint of heart. And you had absolutely tons of struggles and we work through struggles all the time, but it's also a blessing to work with family because I think that how many people have the opportunity to say that they have family that they can work with or want to work with or can be able to provide for everyone in their family in that way. And so that's, I think, a really important thing to keep front of mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And I could do several conversations with you, Aubrie, because I have so many questions about the operation of the business and you got so much risk involved and how do you turn that off and all things. But I do want to transition over into the Montana lifestyle. A lot of people are coming here, right? You guys came from California. You lived overseas for a bit of time, moving and coming to Montana. And this lifestyle, it's so uniquely different. And I do believe for some, it's not for the faint of heart. And for what you guys do, even more so, because you're backcountry, you're in the thick woods. We've got things trying to eat your clients that are to go hike or bike or snowmobile and all the things that happens when snowmobiling or doing all this fun adventuring. I want to understand a little bit about what do you think the Montana lifestyle is given to you? What does it mean to you?
Freedom because of the flexibility, the flexibility of the lifestyle we have because of our job. And in some ways it's all encompassing, but in other ways it is very freeing because there's something so powerful about nature and we have to be in nature to do what we do. And so there's inherently a very freeing, but also grounding element to that where it's just impossible not to be out there and look around and not feel gratitude.
Yeah.
It's so incredibly stunningly beautiful in Montana, especially our area of Montana. And it never gets old. It never gets old looking at the mountainscape because the light constantly changes the way it looks. And there's always that animal that might pop out of the woods at any given moment, or there's always that element of risk that creates the sense of adventure that keeps you wanting more. And there's something for everyone. And just that there's a whole bunch of stuff from a health perspective of you got to get outside for your brain and your sanity. And in Montana, you have to do that just to live here. It's non-negotiable if you're really doing it right. And so I think that inherently is so healthy and so good for the soul.
Absolutely. And what I love is how you guys transcend that into your client base. I felt that even on some of the excursions and adventures we've been on, even with my extended family, your guides do a great job to stop. Let's take this in. Let's take the waterfall in, because we do live in such a beautiful state. And we have so many people coming here wanting to experience it. And like you had mentioned, everybody signs up for things for different reasons. But bringing back that perspective, I think is super important. And you guys do a fantastic job with that.
Thank you.
Yes. But I do want to ask you as a mom, and I just say this, you have such a fantastic opportunity to be outside with your job, right? You're outside all the time. You're grounding, you're breathing in all the fresh air and all the things, but it's still an operation that has to be managed. It can be stressful.
Oh, yeah.
What do you do as a mom to help yourself decompress from it?
Man, I don't know that I'm very good at that.
Yeah. Do you get to
If I'm being truly honest.
Yeah.
Decompress from it all. It's hard. It's hard because
Yeah.
I think moms inherently keep it all up and keep it all together all the time. And that no matter what kind of mom you are, right? That's the mental load that you carry as a mother is indescribable. It's mom to mom. Everybody knows, oh, I got you, girl. I know what you're talking about. You know what I mean? But trying to explain that to your kids or your employees or your husband, and I'm sure there's many relationships where the father might be carrying the mental load, but we're wired as women to think about the needs of everyone all the time and worry about it probably unnecessarily in some ways. There's an aspect that's not super healthy, but it's true. You're just I remember hearing once that the male brain is compartments and everything is in its little box, whereas the female brain is like spaghetti and everything's connected. So the minute you have a thought that reminds you of, you got to call that teacher and you got to do that thing and you got to remind that employee, and it's all connected and it's all going all the time. And our employees are kind of like our kids in many ways because they are young. They're in that 18 to 24 age group. And so they are still kids. A lot of them come from places where they either haven't experienced life outside of the home ever before, or they might come from broken backgrounds and this is a way out, or they just don't know anything about life yet. We might be often we are their first kind of launch pad into an adult experience. So there's a lot of mothering that happens there from my perspective all the time. And so I have my 2 biological children, I have my 100 non-biological children. And so turning it off and decompressing from it, that doesn't happen that much, which is why it's great that I can at least be outside.
Yes.
And because you do have to take then just moments to look at the view and feel gratitude for what you have, or moments to breathe, because just being like, oh, I'm like off the clock now, especially when you own your own business, when you're raising kids, that doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen.
Mm-mm.
No, let's just be honest. Can we just say that it doesn't happen?
Yeah, it doesn't happen. It can't.
Yeah.
It can. It's like being a parent is a 24/7 job all the time. But yeah, because we also work with live animals. But it's not like you park them at night and they just are off until the morning. They can call at any time. There can be, so even when all of our guests go home and the day is done, something could happen at any given time. We have to have our phones on. We have to be available. The number of times that my husband and I have been up at 2 a.m. walking a horse to keep them from going down from colic is several.
Wow.
And all the employees that work for us that live there in the summer, that they're off the clock, but they're on our property. We provide full room and board to all of our employees. So they're living on our property. We're providing housing for them. And so we're responsible for them if something happens, if they're out at night, because they're adults. And so they're out and doing what young kids do. And so you have to be available for that. And yeah, it's a lot, but taking those micro moments is super important. And the gratitude journal, or taking the minute to just recognize it daily, I think that's what keeps you sane.
Absolutely. We're kind of getting down to our last few questions, but I could talk with you all day long about all things that you guys do, because it's mind blowing. It truly is, the reach that you guys have, all the things that you have to think about. And you just hit the nail on the head. You have all these employees that you have to worry about. It's a high risk job at sometimes. You're taking a group of 25 people. I don't know, I'm maybe overstepping there, but taking a group of people and they're entrusting their lives, because they probably are from New York, never stepped foot on Montana soil, and all of that comes with that. And yeah, got a lot of people to have to wrangle and manage and then worry about horses, which are a whole different. I was never around horses. I've interviewed women. That's their full-time job. And the things that they've told me, I'm like, it's like a full-time kid.
Crazy. Oh,
And
yeah.
and now you've got that added stress. But I will say, though, you guys run a fantastic operation. And I do have a question. When you look back at your family's journey from California to Montana, from accounting to outfitting, from corporate life to running Swan Mountain Outfitters, what do you feel most proud of?
The memories we help people create. I tell our guides every time, and it's changed. It used to be, do you realize how many Shutterfly books you're going to be a part of? And now it's reels or whatever, it morphs into, but the impact that we have on people's lives. And for me, from my perspective, that's for Swan Mountain Outfitters as a whole. But from my perspective, it's not just the guests that come to visit. It's also the employees that we've worked with because we've helped change a lot of lives, I think, and redirected paths and opened up new ideas and new experiences to employees that have worked for us, and we get more time with them. And so both of those, I'm really proud of our impact on personal lives and the memories that we create.
Oh, absolutely. I would think over a span of 24 years, you've had so many people come and work for you. They've gotten married or they've found partners, they've had kids, done some really cool life experiences. Have you seen people come back to you guys and go, oh, so you've built a lifetime.
Oh, yeah. We're actually doing 2 weddings this summer. We're not doing both of them. One of them we are hosting of people that have worked for us and are married. One is an actual Many Glacier couple that were both put at the Many Glacier Corral in 2015, I think it was, and they're getting married this summer. And they're like, we want to keep it in the family. So can we do our welcome reception at the Discovery Center? And they're so cute. And we have so many. We could write a book on couples and connections and that kind of thing. We've got tons of that. Just young love in the park. There's tons of that. There's for sure been babies and new businesses launched that were inspired. And then we get letters. We still get Facebook messages from the very first season of people that'll be like, they'll tag something every year that we're hiring. We put out a post on Facebook, we're hiring for the 26th season. And we always get people commenting from previous season, best summer of my life. 20 years later or 15 years later, they'll still write us or tag the post and put a message on and always say something really cool like that. So for sure, that keeps coming back. And then people that'll come back, the number of people that'll come back to us because they want to just work the last 2 weeks of the season. They've got a real job, but they're going to use their vacation to help us close down the season because they know it's really hard when all the college kids go back to school and you're trying to finish out that last couple weeks where it's still pretty busy, but we don't have enough staff. We'll get people to be like, I can't work the whole season, but I can come work the end of August, beginning of September, because I just want to get back in the park again. I just want to be on the horses again. And there are dozens of times that happened where people are like, just have another little taste of it because it was so cool.
Super special. That just speaks to what you guys have created. The type of culture you've created and the values you've instilled. That's beautiful. That truly is. That's wonderful to hear that. My next question is, running a business in the outdoors requires resilience and adaptability. What has the mountains taught you about leadership?
You have to stand strong. You can't let the snow bury you. You can't let the wind topple you over. You can't let the tree crash you down. You get whatever. And those are literally, those things have happened to us in our business, though. But you also can't let the COVID pandemic take you out. You can't let political everything get you down. You can't let inflation destroy you. You have to stand firm in your values and in your mission and what you're trying to do. And if you have to simplify, we had to do that a ton in COVID. We had to peel off things that weren't going to work, but to maintain our true core values of being a highlight of our vision is to be a highlight of a guest experience in Montana, to their experience with us, to be a highlight of their visit to Montana. And that's everything from who answers the phone to what the horses look like, to the conditions of the facilities, to where we're taking them, to how the guides interact with them, all of that. Everyone has to do their best in each of their jobs to be able to make that happen. And we want our stuff to stand out maybe more than the mountains, or maybe more than we want that memory to stand out. And so in order to do that, you have to say, okay, if that's the most important, then if this is spreading us too thin, it's got to go. Or if this be able to adapt and pivot, but stay true and strong and steadfast in who you are.
I love that. That's perfect. And for those listening in, that is such important words to think about and to really sit with, because things do happen in all of our businesses. And you do have to have a strong, grounded sense about you and lean hard into that box of values, integrity, all things, and just pray that it's all going to work out. It's all going to work out the way it's supposed to work out. Wow. And you would be the perfect example to give that advice for leadership. Before we get to our last question, which is a special question for the podcast, it's Pass the Mic. I do have one last question for you. You've experienced Montana from horseback, from the backcountry, from the perspective of someone raising a family here. If you had one, and I love this question for you, I can't wait to hear what you have to say. If you had one perfect Montana day, what would it look like and what would you be doing?
It'd have to be sunrise to sunset, because the light in Montana, especially one thing I love about Montana in the summertime is, it could be the wintertime too, it would just be shorter, but I love the long days of the summer. I also love how the alpenglow shows up in the wintertime on the mountains, but it would start with capturing that morning light and it would end with a sunset. And it would have to have a picnic, a meal outside in the woods, and just being near the water, a lake or a river for me, and probably a summit view. I don't know which order, but I try to squeeze all of those things in there. The light of Montana, seeing it from up high, and then experiencing a meal in the woods and just the relaxing nature of being by the water. I think those are my favorite things. And you can have a horse in there or not. If we really want to get back there, you need them, because there's such amazing.
Is there a trail or something that you guys offer, a service that you guys offer that would capture all those things that people need to know about?
Just our pack trips for sure. If people are willing to do 5 days, or we can do 3 days, 5 days, 6 days in the backcountry, and you would get every aspect of that. We have a short cowboy cookout that we do in outside of Glacier National Park. We do it from the Discovery Center at the West Glacier Corral, where people can go on a 2-hour horseback ride and then finish with a cowboy cookout dinner in the forest. And so they don't get the sunrise, and they wouldn't probably get the water, but they could do that earlier in the day, and then they could finish their day with the cowboy cookout, and that would hit all the
those. Okay, I'm just going to say this. We did a family trip with my in-laws, and we did a cowboy cookout in Yellowstone National Park. And I think it was one of my most favorite experiences.
Yeah.
And I did not it is so much fun, and every person should experience it, because you do feel like you're going backwards in time.
Yeah.
And it slows everything down, right? If you can get rid of your cell phones, you can focus in on, I don't know if you guys do story time, all the things, and then how they create the ambiance. It is amazing. And if you can go to Glacier National Park and do that with Swan Mountain Outfitters, I highly recommend it. I love that. Now, if people are listening in and they want to learn a little bit more about your services and what you guys offer, where do they go to listen and learn?
We have a specific website for every one of our divisions. SwanMountainGlacier.com is going to get you directly to everything connected to Glacier National Park, and then just Swan Mountain Outfitters for most of our backcountry stuff. Llama Trekking has its own website. Snowmobile has its own website. At the bottom of every one of our websites, you could link to any of the offerings. So even if you just remember Swan Mountain Outfitters, you can Google that and find the website, and then scroll down and see all the different offerings. But the website is probably the best. They can give us a call, but there's a lot, like you said, there's a lot of information. There's a lot of things to know. So it's good to look at the website first and get excited by the pictures, and then give us a call.
Yeah, especially for those folks that are planning their trips to Glacier National Park. If you're listening in from Europe, overseas, across the states, we have listeners from all over. One of the great things is, as you plan your trip, they are amazing at helping you with that. They're amazing at helping you understand during this time frame of the year, this is the best trail to go on, or if you're coming during the wintertime, which a lot of people come here during ski season. Other things besides skiing, there's snowmobiling, there's snowshoeing, snow trekking, Swan Mountain Outfitters is your place to go. Take a look at their website, and they have some fantastic offerings. Now, I also want to segue if you're a hunter, right? There are a lot of women hunters that travel to Montana because we have some of the most epic hunting here. You guys offer that. Can you talk a little bit about what you guys offer for hunting?
Yeah. So we do spring bear and turkey in May, and then the full range of ungulate hunting in the fall. And we really do value women hunters, first time hunters, parent hunting with their kid. We have all kinds of packages and programs and stuff for that, because continuing the hunting culture and teaching it to a new hunter or a young hunter, bringing them up with that is probably one of the things we're most passionate about. And the more women hunters, the better. The more youth hunters, the better. We have all of that on the Swan Mountain Outfitters website.
And fishing as well, right?
Fishing.
Oh,
Absolutely. Tons of fishing options. You can do it down low in a lake. You can do it combined with a trail ride. You can do it as part of your pack. Our pack trips are really cool because if you're a hiker, you basically ride up on the pack trip, and then you either have 1 day of excursions or 3 days of excursions, depending on how long your pack trip is, and then you ride down. And so if you're a hiker, your excursions can be very hiking, summit, bagging focused. If you're more of a fisher, we can do just all high alpine lakes. If you want a horseback ride, it can be trails. So they're very customizable that way. But yeah, fishing, there's lake fishing, there's river fishing, there's so many different options from a fishing perspective. And then the llama trekking is really cool too, because that one's very family friendly. Our horses, you do have to be at least 7 years old, in some places 8, sometimes it's 10, depending on the trail. So it's not necessarily the most young family friendly option if you have really little kids. But llama trekking is, if they can walk or you're willing to carry them, they can llama trek, because the llama treks, you're not riding the llamas, they are carrying your gear. They're a gear support and just an entertainment factor for a hiking offering.
Yeah.
So we do a wine and cheese llama trek that is a daily offering that is so fun. And then we do multi-day excursions where you actually are out camping and you get to a further outside and you're backpacking, but you're making it a little bit more luxurious because you don't have to carry it all on your back. The llamas will do that for you. And so, but that's really fun because even the littlest kids, as long as you're up, you have to take care of your little ones in that way. But it's not like they have to ride the llama, or you just can bring them along. So it's super family friendly. So yeah, there's something for everyone.
Oh, truly. And ladies, if you're listening, and I'm thinking 2027 hike for IWD406 has to include freaking llamas.
Yes,
we have
to
do
it. They're so funny. They're the craziest creatures. They're hilarious.
So
and half the fun of the llama trek is just taking pictures of the llama, because they're like aliens. They're such a weird animal, but then also really cute in like, you're so ugly, but you're so ugly you're cute kind of way.
Keeps back.
Because some of them have the craziest teeth and the weird nose and the lips, and they're like part goat, part giraffe, part I don't know what you are.
Yes.
And they make funny noises, and they're amazing creatures, incredibly sustainable. They're actually have a really low impact on the land because they can kind of graze wherever, and they act more like a goat or a deer versus a horse has quite a bit of impact on the land. And llamas are really cool and a lot of fun.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. Yeah, I'm thinking 2027 that's going to happen. I'm going to put it out there in the universe. We have to make that happen. All right, we're down to our last question. You've just been amazing. I really have enjoyed getting to know you, and I really we love you guys. If we have family coming into town, or if we decide as a family to go do something fun, to play in our backyard in Montana, we always hook up with you guys. You have the best crew. You guys just have been flexible with our dates. You have so many offerings. Sky's the limit. If we want to adventure and we're doing this, we call Swan Mountain Outfitters. And just knowing you're wonderful. You're doing such a great job and raising beautiful kids and just making a really strong, legendary impact on all of our communities and beyond that. So thank you so much for everything.
Thank you.
Yes.
Before we pass the mic, we want to pause and recognize the businesses that make this space possible. Pass the Mic sponsorship on the IWD406 podcast is more than advertising. It's a commitment to Montana women supporting Montana women. As a Pass the Mic sponsor, we create a custom audio commercial for your brand, giving you triple exposure on the podcast, across our digital platforms, and on YouTube, all as evergreen content that lives long beyond a single episode. Right now, businesses can receive 12 podcast episodes for the price of one. If you believe in honoring Montana women's history, amplifying their stories, and supporting a platform that truly invests back into the community, we love to work with you. Contact IWD406 today at www.IWD406.com. And now, let's pass the mic.
So our next question is, we believe in amplifying the voices of remarkable women. If you could pass the mic to a Montana woman to share their story on the IWD406 podcast, who would she be and why?
I would pass the mic to Heather Oberholzer. She's a dear friend and neighbor and fellow crazy outfitter, although her outfit is in Alaska, so she's runs a fishing lodge in Alaska for just the summertime, but raises her babies in Montana and just loves on this community more than anyone I have ever met, and just gives back to the volunteer hours and shows that she's got 3 kids. And she'll show up at a basketball game for some other kid just because she just is like, shows up to the shows and puts the word out and raises money and completely runs the Christmas in Columbia Falls, the Christmas program that they have for needy families and kids that don't have the best. She just does so much for the schools and the community. And she's also a full-time business owner trying to run a crazy, very similar to our stuff that we have to do in dealing with Alaska, and they have to fly into their operation, and she has to manage that from afar for a long time because she's here all of the school year. They're just there for a very short time because the weather in Alaska prohibits anything other than that. And so I just have so much respect for how much of her heart she gives, not only to her family and her friends, but to the broader community, and how much she loves on Montana. And she's been just an incredible role model for me as a mom and a fellow business owner that just works it from all angles and kicks ass at it while she does. So I would pass it to Heather.
Oh, I love that. And I look forward to meeting her. Say her name one more time. Heather
Oberholzer.
And which Alaskan company does she own? It
is Crystal Creek Lodge.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. How do you do all that? I mean, from that far away, unbelievable.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah.
You guys are all amazing. And I just want to say thank you again for all that you guys do for our communities. Just such a great asset for all of us here in the Northwest. And I know it's not easy. To do what you're doing.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
But you're doing it.
It is a privilege.
And it's a privilege for us to have you guys. So thank you again. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you.
A special thank you to our podcast guest. You can find all of her links in the description of this episode. If you like what you heard, please hit subscribe. You will be notified of future podcast guests. Follow us on our social media platforms and stay tuned for our next podcast chat with an amazing Montana woman.